bukas o pagpapalawak ng mga sumusunod na negosyo o industriya. Unang-una, driving schools. Mga sinihan o traditional cinemas, video and interactive game arcades.
Those in GCQ areas could soon get to see the big screen once again. The IATF has given the go signal for cinemas and other leisure establishments to reopen.
Allowed attendance in religious gatherings was likewise increased. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. We start with the Interagency Task Force allowing several business establishments to open. More people will now also be permitted to gather in churches.
The move comes as the rate of new infections in the country improves. Metro Manila mayors are not so keen on this new move. Maricel Halili has the big story.
After being closed for almost a year now, cinemas might soon open its doors once again to moviegoers. The Interagency Task Force has allowed more businesses to open in areas under general community quarantine. Those given the green light include arcade games, theme parks, cultural centers, and even driving schools. The palace says improving trend in COVID-19 infections led to the decision.
In other words, wala po tayong problema pagdating dun sa ating utilization rate. At syempre po, alinsulit ito sa katotohanan na kinakailangan natin magbukas pa ng ekonomiya.
But guidelines both from the health department and local officials have yet to be released.
Sigurado po yan, nandyan yung social distancing, nandyan kung ano yung isusuot habang nanonood ng sine. No? So, antayin na lang po natin yung mga detaleng ito na i-issue ng Department of Health at ng mga lokal na mga pamahalaan.
Beginning Monday as well, church attendance in GCQ areas will be allowed up to 50% capacity from the previous 30%. As restrictions are eased, Father Jerome Ceciliano of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, stressed that COVID-19 is still a threat. He urges observance of health protocols. Dr. Ron Jean Solante of San Lazaro Hospital backed the easing. But he says this should be coupled with more rigorous testing and contact tracing.
The bottom line here is that it's still important to wear and obey, be compliant with the minimum health protocol that the government has emphasized. The face shield, the face mask, and physical distancing.
But with reproduction rate in Metro Manila still around 1 and vaccination programs still to be rolled out, the UP Octa research team says opening more activities carries a high risk of spreading infection. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
To talk more about the easing of restrictions, we have on the line Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship and Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion. Magandang gabi, Mr. Concepcion.
Magandang gabi rin.
Sir, is the private sector ready for this? Are we ready to reopen cinemas in particular?
I think what we really have to do is to try to open the economy gradually. And I think that's what the IATF is doing. They're calibrating the level of infection. We are now seeing the more frequent testing and more disciplined social distancing and wearing a face mask. And we're seeing also the vaccines, eventually that will be coming in. I think, the objective from the very start is saving both lives and livelihoods, and we have seen the damage done in the year 2020. That reeled up. The fourth quarter of last year was not good, and the first quarter, I'm sure, of this year will also be not good, because the first quarter of this year is a very slow quarter, being the 1st of January, and everybody spent all their money last Christmas. So many people are losing their jobs to some extent. Because they are unable to, many businesses cannot keep them. Certain sectors are really challenged. The entertainment is one. That's why movie theaters are going to open, and people should start again, showing movies. Local movie production should get started, and many other things. Tourism. The list is so long, no? And to me, that is equally as important as really saving lives, no? And yung kabuhayan kasi ng mga tao, marami dito ay napinsala rin dito. Mga marami tao na ubos yung savings nila. Pati sa negosyo nila, yung working capital nila, naubos rin. No?
And you mentioned saving lives, saving livelihoods. We wish we could do everything at the same time. Of course, there's real dilemma and there's real difficulty there as well. One group of people that have a real vantage point on the ground level and on the policy level are LGU leaders. And we're getting late word, sir, that the mayors of Metro Manila are not so keen on this move by the IATF. What do you say to the mayors who are, like you, considering both lives and livelihood?
Well, it's a, it's like two children drowning, right? Ano gagawin mo? Do you save one or the other? What we try to do is save both as much as possible with the same level of passion, right? And that's why we're doing all of what we see today. The private sector has taken a real proactive role in helping the government buy the vaccines. So this is not seen anywhere in the world that the private sector is taking, and partnering with government to buy vaccines. Normally in other countries, it's the government who just shoulders the cost of vaccines, but not in the Philippines. So this is what I'm trying to say. The opening up the economy is so crucial to our country's future. And of course, we have to do it responsibly. And that's why the private sector is doing everything it can. It spent so much money in providing donations on testing equipment. We've spent in research for pooled PCR testing, saliva testing, and the list goes on. So we're at what I call the towards the middle to the tail end of this war. And this is very critical at this point in time. And to me, what spells the difference will be the vaccine. So now, what the IATF is doing is trying to open slowly, calibrate it. If things go wrong, they can push it back, which they've done in the past. So I think if we don't get to try certain things, then the economy will not move forward. And that is also going to affect people. They will not be able to buy medicines for if they get sick, the lack of food in the table. We have to go back gradually, to our the growth stages of this country, and it's not a choice. Do I save life or livelihoods? I mean, it's both that are really important, and that's what that is the balance that we're trying to do. And of course, everybody is conservative. We want to be sure that we don't raise the level of infection. And we've seen the reports that the infection in certain areas are well under control. Now, don't do this in areas that the infection is out of control.
Okay. Presidential Advisor on Entrepreneurship, Go Negocios, Joey Concepcion, maraming salamat po. This time last year, government had yet to take in the full-scale impact of the COVID-19 outbreak, with officials even pushing for a nationwide mall sale to boost tourism. Now it's a different story, with shopping malls and retail stores trying to lure back business. How is all of that going so far? Let's watch this.
The other big stories tonight, As its safety cannot be guaranteed, the FDA says the PSG hospital will take full responsibility for the use of Sinopharm's vaccines. The FDA adds the compassionate special permit is not retroactive. Due to rising infections in Doha, the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers will not push through next week. FIBA is now looking at possible alternatives. And just in time for Valentine's Day, Taylor Swift showers her fans with more love as she announced a re-recorded version of her Fearless album. All that when we return.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Several groups are slamming the FDA for granting the PSG compassionate use permit for Sinopharm vaccines. But the FDA says the special permit is warranted. Why is that? Marian Enriquez explains.
Back in 2014, Dr. Donabel Cunanan applied for compassionate special permit to use medical marijuana. Her daughter has Dravet syndrome, a severe form of epilepsy.
Around 300 times na nagsiseizure daily. Hindi ko po na-complete yung requirements. Kasi ang number one requirement nila for medical cannabis is it should be FDA approved.
The FDA issues compassionate special permit for life-threatening conditions such as cancer and epilepsy. It gives legal access to drugs only available abroad. Yesterday, the FDA approved the CSP of Sinopharm COVID vaccines for the Presidential Security Group. This did not sit well with Cunanan.
Kaya naman pala ang CSP na mas mapadali, bakit hindi po ito nagawa sa aming mga pasyente na 7 taon na po na naghihirap?
Health reform advocate Dr. Tony Liachon questions the issuance of a CSP when Pfizer and AstraZeneca were able to get emergency use authorization.
Dapat siya through the regular process ng EUA kasi hindi naman life and death situation eh.
The PSG applied for CSP on January 18. The FDA explains the CSP was granted on account of the PSG's nature of work.
As part of the personal security of the president, hindi naman sila nakakasunod dun sa mga social distancing protocols. At syempre talagang malapitan sila.
At least 10,000 Sinopharm vaccines will be donated by China to the PSG. It covers around 4,000 PSG members in Manila and Davao. The rest will go to their close contacts, like immediate family members.
Syempre, pag uwi niya sa bahay, yun yung kasama niya. So they included that. So yung 5,000 what they asked is enough for 5,000 people.
Domingo stressed the PSG hospital will take full responsibility for the vaccination.
Kasama yun doon sa application niya that they take full responsibility for the product and its use.
Domingo said the CSP grant does not excuse the illegal inoculation of some PSG members last year, for which investigations are still ongoing. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Vaccine Chief Carlito Galvez is telling senators that until now, the Philippines has yet to sign any supply agreement with vaccine manufacturers. Senator Franklin Drilon expressed concern that the expected doses are only based on good relations, but Galvez explained that the supply is already locked in for the Philippines. He said they are just finalizing the agreements with Sinovac, Novavax, and Moderna.
My question is very simple. Have we signed any supply agreement which will create a situation of a firm commitment?
We don't have any supply agreement yet, yes sir. We are still accomplishing it within the
The House Committee on Appropriations has approved 2 bills allowing LGUs to directly purchase vaccines. The proposed legislations will allow LGUs to skip the bidding process. The vaccine should be FDA registered with emergency use permits. The bills also create an indemnification fund should there be any untoward side effects from the vaccines. The Budget Department supports the provision but notes the need for a specific revenue source. Both the FDA and the DBM agree that localized vaccination efforts should still be consolidated and linked with national policy.
It is necessary to link all policies and all other efforts with the national COVID-19 deployment and vaccination plan, include activities also like the review and evaluation of the target population of local government units vis-a-vis the target population of the national government, to prevent overlaps in the purchase and inoculation of vaccine for the target beneficiaries.
Private motor vehicle inspection centers have agreed to operate at a loss so long as they won't be out of business. Gerard De La Peña with the details.
There are almost no vehicles queued up in this inspection center in Paco, Manila. This follows the President's order that car owners are no longer required to go to private motor vehicle inspection centers or PMVICs for car inspection. A Senate panel even recommends its suspension. The Transportation Department has ordered PMVICs to lower their charges to just 600 pesos for light vehicles, 500 pesos for motorcycles, and 300 pesos for jeepneys. These are similar rates to private emission testing centers. Owners of PMVICs agreed to operate at a loss. They also agreed to waive the re-inspection charges for a year, but they told motorists that for the same price, they can ensure that their vehicles will be safe.
This is a good chance for you to find out if your vehicles are roadworthy for the same amount of money that you pay.
It also apologized for previous mistakes, including misdiagnosis of car deficiencies. It argued that it's just part of the so-called birth pains of new enterprises. Having said that, motorists may now choose between PMVICs and emission testing centers.
Dalawa po yan po pwede ninyong isumite. Yung emission na dati na po yan or MVIS.
The LTO says it will honor clearances that will be issued by either party, but the DOTR believes one institution would be just fine.
Ano nang silbi ng PMVIC ngayon? Kung hindi na po mandatory, sa amin po sa DOTR, sa LTO, mananatili po ang ating pasilidad.
For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, we are One News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The National Union of People's Lawyers is looking into filing a complaint against the Public Attorney's Office and the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples. Speaking with One News The Chiefs, Attorney Bonifacio Cruz says officers from both agencies visited their 2 AITA clients without prior coordination. AITA's Japer Gurung and Junior Ramos dropped the NUPL as their legal counsel for allegedly being an additional burden to their case. The Liloan, Cebu resident detected with the B117 variant has now tested negative of the virus. He was quarantined in Quezon City. The Quezon City Health Department said they are now only waiting for his symptoms to disappear, after which he will be discharged and tagged as recovered. Tracing and testing of his contacts are ongoing. And ang Dating Daan founder and televangelist Brother Eli Soriano has passed away. He was 73. The announcement was made through the official Facebook page of his religious group past 3 a.m. today. Malacanang described Soriano as a beloved preacher whose teachings touched the lives of many. Time for another quick break. When we return, for the second time, the third window of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers got cancelled. FIBA is now looking at possible alternatives. And just in time for Valentine's Day, Taylor Swift just released her new version of her 2008 hit, Love Story. More on that when we return.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Filipinos yearning for a quick escapade this Valentine's weekend are flocking to Tagaytay City. How's the crowding there? Laila Pangilinan tells us live from Tagaytay. Laila, kamusta dyan?
Nako, Robbie, traffic is everywhere. There are families eating inside their vehicles, along with their kids by the roadside and parks filled with people. Because of the long weekend, the hustle and bustle here in Tagaytay City seems to be going back to its pre-pandemic normalcy.
More people are arriving in Tagaytay City to celebrate the Chinese Lunar New Year and Valentine's Day. But some tourists turn back their vehicles upon checkpoint inspection.
Kinokontrol namin lalo na yung mga bata na nasa sasakyan, pinapaikot na namin, pinababalik na namin. At saka yung mga matatanda na 65 above.
Some travelers are unaware that children below 15 are still not allowed in the city. Senior citizens are likewise barred from entering parks.
Pero ang intention namin, travel lang. Hindi naman kami titigil. Pauwi na kami.
Those who are not allowed to enter, however, hold no grudge. They say a road trip is enough to entertain the kids.
Pinasyal ko lang yung dalawang bata. Kasi puro lang sila sa bahay.
Sobra na sila sa kagagamit ng cellphone, kaya nilabas muna namin.
A family who went to Tagaytay all the way from Bulacan also said they just wanted a breath of fresh air.
Ang medyo may kalamigang hangin, ang klima ng Tagaytay, ay nadama po namin ng aming pamilya.
Couples donning matching hoodies also enjoyed a quick escape from their busy lives in the metro.
Kitang-kita daw po kasi yung yung Taal, volcano yun.
Saka refreshing po kasi yung view sa taas.
Robbie, for those planning to spend their long weekend here in Tagaytay, you guys better brace yourselves for traffic, especially during the day, because it will take you roughly around 2 to 2.5 hours from the Calax exit, that's the Cavite Laguna exit, to the Rotonda or the Tagaytay Rotonda behind me. But for now, as you can see, traffic is easing up here in Tagaytay. And that's the latest here, Robbie. Back to you.
2 hours. Thank you, Laila. That was Laila Pangilinan giving us the updates from Tagaytay City. Washington and Beijing remain at odds on most fronts. That much was clear following the first ever phone call between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. After the 2-hour phone call, Biden reportedly told U.S. senators to step up as China continues its assertive actions in Asia. Biden is quoted as telling lawmakers, "If we don't get moving, they are going to eat our lunch." Back here on the home front, retired Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio also flagged concerns about Beijing's new Chinese Coast Guard law. He says the measure could upend international law.
This new law of China actually is a grave threat to world peace because the foundation of the United Nations is that no country can use force, can fire on ships of other countries to settle a dispute. You must go to negotiation, mediation, and arbitration in accordance with international law. And this started in 1945 with the creation of the United Nations.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From Philstar.com, the prosecution in the criminal case against journalist Lady Ann Salem is blocking her release. Senior Associate City Prosecutor Keruben Garcia said the dismissal of Salem's case is still subject to appeal. A Mandaluyong court has recently dismissed the illegal possession of firearms and explosives case against her. Salem's lawyers argue that the dismissal is tantamount to an acquittal. Business World reports that the auto industry is showing hints of recovery. Car sales registered a slight 1.4% year-on-year decline last month. That's coming from an almost 40% full-year slump in 2020. The Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines said narrow decline in January was a quote positive sign that the industry is starting to recover. And from News 5, photos of steam coming out of canals in Los Baños in Laguna went viral. PHIVOLCS clarifies that the steaming was from hot springs naturally found in volcanoes. The agency stresses Mount Makiling in Los Baños, Laguna is not an active volcano. This means there is no risk of eruption. Time for the big story in sports. The Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas confirms that the final window of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers in Doha, Qatar has been canceled due to COVID-19. The sports body said it is saddened by the development given the progress of the Gilas team currently training in Calamba, Laguna. The team was supposed to leave for Doha this weekend to compete in Group A of the qualifiers, and this is now the second time their match in the third window has hit a snag. FIBA said it is looking for alternate venues to hold the games in the near future.
The pop star that keeps on popping. After gifting fans with 2 albums last year, Taylor Swift has just re-recorded her 2008 album, Fearless. It earned then teenage Taylor her first Grammy. It reimagines 13 tracks, plus 7 more songs. It also has 6 unreleased songs. But why is Taylor re-recording her albums? After leaving Big Machine Record in 2019, Swift lost control of the master recordings of her first 6 albums. For Taylor, re-recording the songs feels more fulfilling and emotional. Swift hinted at an April 9 release of her album. Don't have the patience to wait that long? Well, have your Valentine be filled with her released version of Love Story.
And with pandemic still very much around, some are questioning if one should still give gifts during Valentine's Day. Well, there might just be options that could strike the perfect balance between romantic and practical. Take this bear, for example. It's stuffed not with cotton, but with rice. The Rice Love Bear can carry up to 5 kilos of rice. It also doubles as a tote bag. And with pork prices still soaring, this lechon house in La Loma sells plant-based lechon belly with corn, wheat, soybeans, cassava, some food coloring. The Velechon looks and tastes just like the real thing, sans the putok-batok. Aside from food, your beloved would definitely want this bouquet. Not flowers, but crisp banknotes. Perfect for online shopping. No, Rich.
Please don't give me pork. Give me money instead, ang pao.
Oo nga. I was gonna go for lechon also. Pero ganun kahirap ang pork ngayon. Pati sa La Loma, the lechon is plant-based. Hindi, wag na lang. Valentine's kailangan lahat totoo.
What are you doing for this weekend? It's Chinese New Year today and Valentine's Day on Sunday.
You know, I've been married 23 years. Despite that, we're still romantics. Tatlong options namin dyan.
Ano yan?
Lazada, Shopee, or Smart Padala.
Maghahanap ako ng tulad
Smart
mo.
Padala.
Me, I'm wearing red from today until Sunday because we're gonna need all the luck we can get. And that wraps up today's big story. My name is Gretchen Hall. Catch us again Monday at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News. Good evening.